Hey, this is Salina, Monogenetics, Session 3, 2022, Salina's interpretation and point of view of what Kirby said, because I teach some of this stuff and been practicing for a while. So this is a framework to help you develop your own practice. In this session, we talked about breath and life force, learning the framework, but holding lightly to the mechanics to develop your own relationship with the life force. He talked about reproductive creative energy, and then he did a sample breathwork practice of what he may do, which is just, he's encouraging us not to make this a technical linear thing, and he was hesitant to even make it that way, but in the West, perhaps, in more so than, because I've taught in the East, more so in the West, there's a desire to have a framework laid out for you to then make it your own. So I see that as what Kirby's doing for us. Okay, so some of the terminology for breath. Breath energy, the spirit, your own individual spirit. Ruach is another word for breath in Hebrew, prana, and chi in Chinese, prana in the East, in like India and Sri Lanka in particular. All right, life force energy is an intelligence, and it is individual to each person. So you could describe your being, your person, as an adventure vehicle for life force energy to individuate through Christ in you, through you, and the amalgamation of your individual spirit with the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of God within you. That's how I framed what he said. So he'll correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I understood it to be. Life force energy is intention activated. It's not technique activated. Your intention, because God looks in the heart, man looks on the outside, God looks on the heart. Our intention activates that relationship, and then the life force, as he mentioned, teaches you. But it's that childlike, wondrous spirit with honor and intention. That's what I heard him say. Okay, so then he used a scripture in 1 Corinthians 14, 32-34. The spirit of the individual is subject to the prophet, the one who speaks. The spirit is subject to the prophet and teaches you, the individual, the spirit teaches you, the individual, as you move and live and breathe together. So in him we move, we live, we breathe, we have our being, right? So that intimate relationship and our wondrous honoring intention, I believe, is what activates this process, and it's so individual. So we were encouraged to use these teachings from Kirby as we study our breath work and figure out what works for us to build our own framework for our individual life force, spirit, to grow in our unique force. May the force be with you, because every Jedi gets their own lightsaber. So that's completely individual. There's technique and practice, right? And then he asked us, please don't become linear or rigid. Grow into a flow with your own individual life force. Your spirit mingled with the Holy Spirit becomes a very individual thing. Okay, now let's go to the reproductive energy, because this was amazing how he said this for me personally. Reproductive energy, also sometimes known as sacral energy, is the redeeming power to create. He said he's redeeming sexual energy as the redeeming power to create. And just re-listen, because he said so much great stuff. I'm just giving you bullet points. The energy center of the location of this, the energy center location in the body is at the bottom of the hips. And when you alchemize this energy, it becomes a spiritual vehicle for longevity. Got to listen again a couple times because it's so good. Reproductive energy is a centrifugal force, electromagnetic force, similar to the earth, which has a core, and our bodies have bones. And that energy centrifugally pulls to the core. And as the core is strong and dense, similar to our bones in the earth, and then the dismissing of the alchemy available to continually utilize this reproductive energy ultimately will result in the collapse inward or death in our body. To alchemize this energy and use it to create, to recreate, to rebuild, to regenerate results in longevity and an increase in the life force. Okay, then he used a seed analogy. The seed is full, let's say a cedar tree seed or any seed is full of the adult, the culmination of that plant. It's all in that little seed, but it must go down to then grow up. So similar in the reproductive force must learn how to utilize and alchemize the power to raise from the base sexual energy into the divinity, into the long life. So from seed to consciousness, to cosmos consciousness or cosmic consciousness, to divinity. That's the goal, and that's the energy that we're pulling up. So the sacral energy is the power to create organs, babies, spinal cords, brains, when you create a baby. So surely, he said, and this is the part that was like, oh, I just didn't even see it that way. So surely, he said, you can bring this youthful vigor, life force energy into your own body, nourish your whole body. Therefore, you can harness the sacral energy from going down that death spiral and bring it up, alchemizing flesh into spirit, life force energy from our bodies into divinity. And so dealing with something like organ issues or a heart issue, or I'm even transferring it to emotional issues, where we alchemize this energy to shift everything. Okay, I'm gonna leave it there. You just gotta listen again. I listened like 4 times. Okay, so breathing style practice with Kirby. I'm just gonna run through these, and I'll probably make like an individual video for each one so you could do a practice with me if you're not getting it, and then make it your own. Just so you can sort of get that framework of what he was saying in you. And then you just keep practicing. And it's not like a stringent, you must do it this way. It's kind of what I call the do it like that-ish to start. Okay, so please view this as the implication of breath work rather than the techniques to be mastered. The life force will teach you how to do it. Life force is unique for each individual. Life force will teach you. The force will be with you. Okay? So first of all, he talked about normal breathing, which is also known as belly breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, yogic belly breath. And he said, we're going to do that. He does that 30 times. When you do that breath, the diaphragm expands on the inhale with the abdomen pushing outward. On the exhale, the abdomen comes back in and the diaphragm lifts back up. And if you don't know what the diaphragm is basically at the bottom rib, and it wraps all the way around to your spine, and it's a dome-shaped muscle right under the lungs. When you breathe well, it pushes flat and the organs will expand. And you release the breath, the organs come back in because the diaphragm goes back up. It's an incredible muscle. It's the muscle that grows fastest in your body. You just got to use it. So he had us use our hands to go with the inhale as if you're filling a cup up and then pouring it back out. But you can, basically what you're doing when you use your hand, which I often do with people as well, or both hands, is you're somatically putting that into your body through physical action Sometimes the breath work, the internal actions are a little bit hard to imagine if you're not really familiar with anatomy, let's say. So that hand movement will really help you. And I still do it. I've been doing this for like 30 years, so I still use my hand. I'll find myself when I start using my hand. Okay, so you want to breathe through the nose as much as possible, I suggest, and relax your jaw. So your lips are together, your teeth are apart. And technically, if you can let your tongue just rest against the, sorry, I keep getting texts, the bottom teeth, the tip, and the middle back of your tongue, just to rest in the roof of your mouth, that's even more relaxed place for your tongue and opens your airway a little bit more. So none of this is tense. And then never lift your shoulders. The whole point of the diaphragm is it's your breathing muscle, and it sets your body up. I think I already mentioned this, but it does set your body up in the parasympathetic nervous system response. So that's where you release happy hormones and you can heal yourself. So you really want to focus on that diaphragm when you're first starting out, and then it just sort of becomes natural. But if you're ever like freaked out or stressed out, just check, see if this is like, then just lower it down, use your diaphragm, take one breath even, it'll change things. So he said 30 breaths, and on that last one, and he had us breathing in and breathing out. And on that last one, on the exhale, he said to basically pump out approximately 30% of the oxygen, let the air out and hold that 30% out. So it's a pump and a hold for 30% of the air until you need to breathe. You have an air hunger, or just before the struggle, or just before the panic. Different ways of saying that. And then you pump out, let's see, one last pump. Okay, pump and hold. And when you're holding the breath, he described tightening the pelvic floor right underneath all the bottom bits, and then keeping the energy of the breath pushed downward. Although your diaphragm has already come back up under the lungs, the energy of the breath is pushed downward, which is in the area, which is about, it's like a solar plexus, or if it's a little bit lower, that it would be right in front of your sacrum, right in front of below your belly, that area. So that was, he said, 30 times, and then you can do that 5 times or 2 more times or whatever. I'm not being specific because I'm still confused on what he said, but he also kept saying you have to make this your own. So this is just a practice to know. So it's just a regular breath in, just don't lift your shoulders, and a regular breath out using the diaphragm. The second type of breath he talked about was a waterfall breath, which is also known in Qigong as like the rise and fall breath. And the arms he used was the waterfall hands, so they would come up and down. And he's using 2 hands, but I have a computer in the other hand. Oh my gosh, the parrots. I feel like I'm in Sri Lanka. Okay, so here we go. Arms come up with the inhale, and then they go down. And the point of the arms is it's a flow. It's like a waterfall. It's very gentle, and there's no real endpoint, as with the breath. And again, similar to the first kind, which he just described as normal breathing, which you might know as belly breathing, or diaphragmatic breathing. It's very similar. And then what he added to it was, think of the cup filling up from the bottom to the top and coming out from the top to the bottom. And your hands are rising with the water level and lowering with the water level. And the other thing he added was to visualize the energy of the breath as it moves up, utilizing the energy on the exhale of the breath on number 30. So you visualize the breath energy coming in and out of the body. On the 30th, taking that energy that you've been visualizing, you do the pump and the hold, like 30% exhale, and you want to feel that tightening of the breath, even more pronounced than you did on the first round, where the pelvic floor tightens and the weave around the abdomen tightens inward and the diaphragm tightens downward. So before we were just holding the breath with the pelvic floor tight and the energy of the breath was holding still under the diaphragm. Now we're using the diaphragm, the belly, and the pelvic floor to hold that energy very succinctly just across from the front side of the sacrum, or you could do it up by the solar plexus, but that's really more for a different kind of breathing. But around under the belly button is a good place to imagine. And then you want to hold that breath, the energy of the breath there, and then let your imagination go from the energy of the breath into that energy ball, as if you're creating the breath energy into a ball now, and it becomes luminous. So you want to hold it and massage it so it grows in size, expanding and then contracting and getting more intense. And it moves out and in. And you just move it, massage it with your hands. You can use your hands as if you're holding a ball that's moving, a life force energy ball that's moving, growing, expanding, contracting. And then really stay on your focus with that ball, allowing it to illuminate and condense and expanding. And then the next step, maybe on round 2 of that, would be, or on round 1, whenever you like, would be to observe your breath. Don't judge your breath, just observe your breath. Are you doing a very shallow breath? Are you holding an exhale? Are you tight in the breath, or are you relaxed? Just begin to notice. And he said the body will naturally climatize to work with the energy, the life force energy. Okay, the sun is like encroaching. Moving to the shade because I was cold, now I'm freezing. Okay. Okay, so that's the what he described as the waterfall breath. I'm going to give you some videos and you can work with them. I think they're very easy to understand, and they're mostly Qigong breathing. So then he's talked about the reverse breathing. He also said that he might stay there in that energy ball, creating that ball. He might stay there for quite a while. But he moved us on, for the sake of time, into reverse breathing. Again, 30 of these. So we understand that the breath is actually coming in physiologically down into the lungs, compressing the diaphragm downward. The organs expand and the ribs expand. But the energy of the breath in reverse breathing, you're thinking of the energy as a coming up from the pelvic floor, from the sacral energy up the spine, all the way to the pineal gland or pineal gland. So it comes up all the energy centers, pelvic floor, sacral, what's the xiphoid process area here, and then the heart and the throat and the third eye or pineal gland, and then the crown of the head, and it makes a circle down and up. And Kirby his team made a great video for reverse breathing that goes along with the luminous tablet, so I'll link that as well. And you want to continue. It's one continuous breath. You take the energy up and the energy out, down and up, and it'll eventually, you can make that move more quickly and more energetically. But right now we're just doing 30 of these similarly paced inhales down onto the diaphragm while the energy is coming up the spine all the way to the crown of the head, and then it goes back down to the pelvic floor and comes back up. When you breathe in, this time in reverse breathing, the diaphragm compresses down, the belly pulls in, and the pelvic floor tightens. We're not going to say pull up, it tightens. So your pelvic floor is tight, your belly is tight, the diaphragm compresses downward, and the energy is pulled up like the mercury in a thermometer when it gets hot. It pulls up the spine, and then as you release the breath, the belly actually expands. Everything relaxes. Okay, and this is not it's not like a breath. It's he said intention is everything, and the effort should turn to flow. It shouldn't be like effort. It should be a flow, and it takes time to practice this. I've been doing it for a long time, and I still have to think about it sometimes because I'll find I'm tense up here. So we want this to relax and just keep the energy tension down on the lower water, so to speak. So pelvic floor, abdomen, and diaphragm. I'm trying to cut out some of these noise. No. So as a training exercise for this kind of breath, he had us take one inhale, gently squeeze the energy in tight on the pelvic floor, in from the abdomen and down from the diaphragm, and pump a small exhale out with the energy hold. And you don't really do this with your mouth, but you can start there. You're really doing it out of the nose, and doesn't make a lot of sound. But he did a great demonstration, so go ahead in the video and relive that. But you can do a few pumps, like if you've ever done any boxing or martial arts, there's a it's that tightening of all the lower trunk muscles and pushing the air out. So he described it beautifully. I don't need to redo it. Then as we continue, we do 30 of that was just practice. You're just pumping, doing the pumping practice, which he's going to have us use in other things along the way. Here comes more sun. Funny thing about the sun, it sets. Okay. So continuous reverse breathing for 30 times. So as you inhale, the energy is going up, up, up the spine. The breath's still going down. The energy comes up and circles back down. On the 30th one, you do your exhale and you hold that energy, solar plexus, that's what I was thinking of. Hold your energy solar plexus at the bottom of the sternum, right here. So right in your core, basically the center of your core, maybe not the center of your body, but center of your core. And you hold the energy after a 30-ish% exhale, pump. So not all the breath is coming out, just about 30% of it. And you pump and hold, compressing the energy with the tightening of the pelvic floor, down with the diaphragm and in with the abdomen. And then create that energy ball. Again, watch the luminosity grow, massage the energy ball, and be very, very aware of it. So this is a sacral reproductive energy force that you use to heal yourself. So then you use that, and he described doing a series of these the 30th breath, where we create that energy ball 5 times and holding the energy and then directing it exactly where you need it. So if your liver is not so great right now, that's where you need to direct it, or an emotional situation or another place in the body. So you take that life force energy and create, you reproduce with it. So you reproduce a kidney. But it's all about that intention, and it takes practice. This I know, this one is very much, it distracts me, especially if you know a lot about the body. You start to see the energy, and then you want to direct it to a place in the body, and it's like, I know everything about that organ, and just go to the place. But you have this energy in your body. We have it, and it sort of diminishes. In Qigong, I would say if you hold on to it really tight, all the qi or the qi energy, it sort of dissipates. If you don't pull enough of it, if you don't move the energy, it has to move. It's not a stagnant thing, but it's in us, so we don't want to waste it. So that is the basics, and that's 23 minutes, so that's way too long, but that's what I got out of that. And then I can easily make some videos for each style of breathing if anybody wants them. I guess you would just want to put a message of please do that below, or maybe I'll just make them and you can watch them or not. Thanks for listening.